All right, today we've got our second lecture in our pre-algebra playlist. And so today we're going to be talking about adding whole numbers and addition in general. So what is addition? I'm sure most of you know, but there's a few little details that are important to be aware of as we move forward so that you can get a really good grasp of the fundamentals, which will make algebra and all of further math a lot easier. So in addition, we've got two numbers or more being added together. And so the numbers that are being added together are collectively referred to as the addends. And so the result of performing an operation where we're adding numbers together is called the sum. The notation we use for this is the little cross symbol, so that's a plus. And the expression would be, as an example, 3 plus 4. If there was 3 plus 4 equals 7, that is then called an equation. So the expression is not both sides of the equation. It is just the 3 plus 4. So numbers separated by an operator. So it's read as 3 plus 4, and the result would be the sum of 3 and 4. So just so we're making sure that we're aware of what the translation from math notation to words would be for both of these examples here. For A, we have 7 plus 1, and that's how you would say it. So 7 and 1 are the addends. The plus symbol in the middle is the operation, and as a whole, this would be an expression. The result of this, if we were to have an equation, would be 7 plus 1. So the result of that would be the sum. So in this case, it would be 8. The same thing for the 12 plus 14. That's how we say it, 12 plus 14. 12 and 14 are the addends. They are summed together using the plus operator in the middle. And so the result of that would be the result of the operation of summing or adding together 12 and 14. So in that case, it would be 26. So now we're moving on to the identity property of addition. This is quite fundamental to know, as I'm sure most of you understand, but it's important to know and revise. So all this says is that any number added with 0, so when 0 is one of the addends, then it's basically eliminated. So A plus 0 would just be A. And so 0 would be called the additive identity. Basically, if you've got two numbers, they're added together, one of them happens to be 0, then you'll just get back the other number. If there's multiple numbers, then you will still get a sum of those other numbers, but the 0 won't have any effect on the result of the sum. So as an example here, if we were to do 0 plus 19, that would just equal 19. And same thing here for 39 plus 0. We would just get back 39 as a result of the sum. Another important property to be aware of is the commutative property of addition. So this basically just says that if we interchange A plus B for B plus A, in other words, if we change the order of the addends around, we'll still get the same result. So a more concrete example we could see below would be if we're going to add 8 plus 7, we'll get 15. So if we reorder that, so we're doing 7 plus 8, we will still get 15. So it has no effect on the actual result of that sum. So how do we actually add whole numbers? Here's some steps I would suggest to write down. So step 1, we write the numbers so that each place value lines up vertically, and then we add the digits in each place value. Working from left to right, starting with the ones place, if a sum in a place value is more than 9, we'll carry it to the next place value. Then we continue adding each place value from right to left, adding each place value and carrying if needed. So if you write down these steps and then start approaching some practice problems, you'll find that these become quite intuitive very quickly. And so we'll work through a couple of examples with these front of mind. So working on problem A, we have 43 plus 69. So if we write down A, 43 And now step one was that we want to line these up so their place values line up in a vertical way. So if we write plus here and then we go 69, remembering that it doesn't matter whether the 69's on top or the 43's on top, it really doesn't matter. That's the commutative law of addition, or commutative property of addition. And so now we just put a little line underneath, and then we just evaluate from right to left. So we go 3 plus 9, well that's 12. So this is where we put the 2 below, so the 2 as part of the 12 in the ones place, and then we carry the 1 to the next column over. So the 1 will go above the 4. Now instead of just saying 4 plus 6, we actually say 1 plus 4 plus 6. The other thing here is that because we end up with the sum of 1 plus 4, which is 5, plus 6 is 11, and there's no more places to the left, we actually just write 11. So we write the whole number. And so the answer of 43 plus 69 would then be 112. So let's go through another example. I implore you to try this one yourself, but we'll approach it pretty quickly here. So 324 plus 586. This time I'll show you, I'll write 586 on top and then plus 324 and then followed by a line. And so making sure that our hundreds place, which is the far left, lines up in each one. And so we've got 500 and 300 lined up. Then we've got 80 and 20 lined up in the tens place, and then 6 and 4 lined up in the ones place. So we're good to go there. Next, we want to start from right to left. So we'll go 6 plus 4, which is 10. So we look at, because it's greater than 9, we want to carry in this case. And so the second digit in the ones place for that 10 would be 0. So we put that below, and then we'll carry the 1. So then it will become 1 plus 8, which is 9, plus 2, which is 11. Again, this is greater than 9, so we want to carry. So 11, the ones digit is 1. We keep that there, and then we carry the tens place, or the 1. So we get 1 plus 5 plus 3. So that's 6 plus 3, which is 9. So then we get 910. So the answer to that will be 910. So moving on to a couple of what probably look as more difficult, but they're not really. It doesn't really matter how many places you have. It's going to be the same process. Even if you had a 20-digit long number, you're still just going to be calculating one column and then carrying anything over. So for A, we want to write out 1,683 plus 479. Now in this case, I'd recommend writing from right to left, just so you can make sure that your places are lined up. So we know the 9 is in the ones place, the 7 is in the tens place, and the 4 is in the hundreds place. So we don't actually have a thousands place for the second number. So we'll see what happens there. Then we want to put our line underneath, and we just work from right to left, adding the individual numbers together. So we get 3 plus 9, which is 12. Put the 2 there, carry the 1. 1 plus 8 is 9, plus 7 is 16. So we've got 6 there, carry the 1. 1 plus 6 is 7, plus 4 is 11. So we put the 1 there, carry the 1, and then we've got 1 plus 1, which is 2. So we end up with 2,162. Now for B, this will be a little bit more tricky, only because we have 3 numbers. So there's a couple of ways to approach this. I guess the easier way would be to add 2 numbers together and then find the sum of that and then add it to the next number. Personally, I just like to line up all 3 numbers, ensuring that we get the right columns. And so we'll want to make sure that we're lining up our place value in the correct spot when doing this, and we might have to just use a little bit more mental math here. So for B, I like to write the numbers in decreasing order of how high the value is. So on the top one, I'd put 21,357. And I did make an error here, so you should really add the plus there as well. And so we've got plus, and then I would put 8,596. And then finally, I would put 861. And so now you could put your line underneath, and just working vertically down from right to left, we can just add together. So we've got 7 plus 6, which is 13, plus 1, which is 14. That's a 4 there, and then we carry the 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. 6 plus 9 is 15. 15 plus 6 is 21. So we've got the 1 there, and then we carry a 2 this time. Now we've got 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. Plus 8 is 18. Now we carry the 1 again, and we put our comma because we know that periods are separated. So there's 3 values in each period, or 3 places in each period. So after 3, we need to put a comma. Then we've got 1 plus 1, which is 2, plus 8, which is 10. So we've got 0 there, carry the 1, and then we get 1 plus 2, which is 3. So the result would, or the sum, would then be 30,814. All right, so now we're moving on to translating word phrases to math notation. This is a really, really underlooked area, and I'll continue to have these sections for addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and moving forward into other areas too. I think a lot of students really struggle with these worded problems when realistically you need to look out for some keywords, and you need to know how to turn those from a worded or even a verbal problem sometimes into a mathematical problem. And so just to easily organize this, we have the operation. So we're looking at addition. And now this list of words are all different words that we can see, or we should look for, when we're going to add something together. So we'll go through a couple of examples here. So we can have plus. An example of that would be 1 plus 2, and can be written numerically as well. Then we could have sum. So we're looking at the sum of 3 and 4, remembering that the sum is the result of adding 2 or more addends together. Now increased by, so you could say 5 is increased by 6, which means 5 plus 6. We could say more than, so 8 more than 7, which is 7 plus 8, or 8 plus 7. Total of, the total of 9 and 5, so that would be 9 plus 5. And added to, so 6 added to 4 would be 6 plus 4. And so these are all different phrases that we can see that really indicate that we're doing some kind of addition. So now we want to translate and simplify the sum of 19 and 23. So here we want to recognize that we're talking about the sum of, and so sum refers to addition. So really what they're saying here is 19 plus 23. And so we could calculate that if we want. So we can line them up vertically, adding a plus here, little line below, and then we get 9 plus 3, which is 12, carry the 1. Now we got 1 plus 1 plus 2, which is 4. So we get 42. So therefore, in a worded problem, we could say the sum of 19 and 23 is 42. All right, translate and simplify. 28 increased by 31. So here we're looking for another key phrase. So increased by is usually referring to some kind of addition. And so in this case, we're looking at 28 plus 31. So exact same problem as before. And all of these phrases are going to lead you back to doing the same basic problem that we were solving earlier, where we're lining up columns vertically, making sure that we have the place value correct in each number, and then adding those together, ensuring that we carry if the value is over 9. So 8 plus 1 is 9, 2 plus 3 is 5, and that would be it, 59. Okay, now adding whole numbers in application. So the steps here, they'll be the same regardless of what application problem you have. I'm trying to give you a guide to approach application problems in general. And when I refer to application problems, I'm thinking of things like, rather than just adding numbers together, maybe we're using some kind of measurement, maybe we're doing a perimeter. And so those kind of applications really boil down to getting back to our basics. So finding those key phrases and looking to kind of get them in a mathematical notation so that we can perform some operation. In this case, we'll be performing the addition operation. And so if we look at the steps here, we want to read the problem to determine what we're actually looking for. Then we want to write a word phrase that gives the information to find it, translate that word phrase into math notation, and then simplify, and then write a sentence to answer the question. So what you should be noticing here is that apart from step 1 and step 4, we've been looking at the word phrases that we're talking about in step 2. So things like the sum of, increased by, those kind of things. And then translating the word phrase into math notation and simplifying is exactly what we were doing in the last section. Hannah earned grades of 87, 93, 68, 95, and 89 on the 5 tests of the semester. What is the total number of points she earned on the 5 tests? So I guess step 1, we have to think, what are we actually trying to determine? Well, if we look for the word phrase, we can see here that we're looking for the total number of points. So when we were talking before, we did notice that we were looking for the total of when we were referring to addition. So what we're really looking for here is the sum of the different numbers. So maybe the sum of the points on the tests. And so at that point, you should have a couple of alarm bells really ringing. So we know how to find a sum. How we do that is we have addends and we add them together using the plus operator. So we should have some numbers and then plus symbols in between. And then from there, we should be able to find some result. And so if we look, we have 5 numbers, we have the test scores. So we know that translating that into mathematical notation, all we would do is write them down vertically, aligning the columns. And so we have 87, 93, 68, 95, and 89. And so it looks like a lot, but it's the exact same process. There might be a little bit more mental math involved because we're using numbers that are probably going to be in the 20s or maybe even the 30s, but it's the same exact process. So we've aligned the columns, and now we just go 7 plus 3, that's 10, plus 8, 18, plus 5, 23, plus 9, 32. So we put the ones place, which is the 2, and then we add the 3. And so 3 plus 8 is 11, plus 9 is 20, plus 6 is 26, plus 9 is 35, plus 8 is 43. And so we can see that the total that she earned was actually 432. So the final step, and something a lot of kids miss, or a lot of students miss, is that they actually need to be able to indicate what this means in terms of a sentence. And so we would say, Hannah earned 432 points in the 5 tests. And so we can write something like that, and that will really indicate to any teachers or markers that we understand what we're talking about. So just to recap there, we want to find a key phrase. In this case, we're looking at the total number of points. Total means we're finding the sum of the points. We were given the points in the question. Then we just need to add them together using the plus operator, with each number being an addend. Then from there, we need to calculate that and then use it in a sentence. So in this case, Hannah earned 432 points in the 5 tests. So moving on to another application problem, we're looking at the perimeter of the patio shown. And so here we can see a diagram which is a patio, and so like a deck area outside. And so the perimeter is all of the outside surface. And so if we're looking for the length of the outside or the perimeter of the patio, all we need to do is we need to find the sum of all of the other sides in the patio. So how long we have. So we've got 2 feet, 3 feet, 2 feet, 6 feet, 4 feet, and 9 feet. And so if we found the sum of all these, we would then find the entire length of this. So from here all the way around, down here, across here, back up, and then back to our starting point. And so if we were to do that, all we want to do is add these pieces together. So if we were to do that, we want to start by listing out all of our addends. So we have 9, 2, 2, 3, 6, and 4. And so just to cross check that, we have 9, 2, 3, 2, 6, and 4, which is what we've written down. And so now we can add them together. We don't really need to do a vertical column, but it's good to get in the habit of it, just because there's less than one place value, or there's less than 2 place values, sorry. And so we've got 9 plus 2, which is 11, plus 2 is 13, plus 3 is 16, plus 6 is 22, plus 4 is 26. Now another key thing here is because we're talking about some kind of measurement, it has some unit. So the unit in this case would be feet. So if we're measuring in meters, we need to write at the end meters. If we're measuring in feet, we write feet. If we're measuring in kilos, we write kilos. So anything with a unit we need to carry through at the end. So this would be 26 feet. So then writing this as a word phrase or in a worded answer, we would then write the perimeter of the patio is 26 feet. And so that's how we would approach that. Just to recap, perimeter is a measure of the outside length. To find that, if we have some area or some room that we're looking at, or in this case a patio, we want to measure each side, then we add all the lengths together and we find the total perimeter. In this case, finding the perimeter means finding the sum of all of the lengths. And so we would just add those together as we've been doing. We would find the total. We found that to be 26. We ensure that we carry the unit, and so we carry the feet, and so we say the perimeter of the patio is 26 feet long. Great, that brings us to the end of our addition lecture. And so really everything there is as much as you need to know for addition. Hopefully it gave you a really, really deep and solid fundamental understanding of addition, what the different things like the addends and the different word phrases we can see that refer to addition are. And so moving forward, being able to apply that in different contexts is going to be super important as we move into harder concepts like algebra. And so hopefully you found this useful. If you did, give us a like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you with the next lecture on subtraction.